Sanbona Bafundi. Here, what I need to do is, we're shortening the hem on this dress, and it's a very, very thin chiffon, I think. So I've cut that off. We need to shorten, at the end of the day, 4 centimeters. Now, the actual hem, or the original one, was kind of like this, maybe like 3/4, 3/4. But I'm going to do 1 centimeter, 1 centimeter, just so that there's not so much that we're throwing in the ocean, and that if we have to lengthen it, we have a little bit of play there. So I've cut off 2, and I'm going to turn 1, 1, and that gives us 4 at the end of the day. And there's a couple different ways to do this. I'm just going to do, for me, what's the easiest is to go around and mark 2 centimeters with one of these invisible, or one of these friction pens that's going to just disappear as soon as the iron gets onto it. So I'm just marking up 2 centimeters on the wrong side. Then what I'll do is just fold the fabric up to that mark, and that will obviously be a 1 centimeter, since it's going to be half of 2. Yeah, with something that's very flimsy like this, I find it difficult, especially if I'm doing a small turn, like a 2 centimeter or a 1 centimeter. I find it difficult to do with the measuring tape, because the moment you iron it and you move, it just flips out again, because it's such a soft fabric. It likes to move around like water. So, okay, there we've got everything marked. So here I'm going to go on my wooden block, which is going to really help. And I'm just going to fold it over to the 1 centimeter mark. I'm going to come around and just give that an iron. Now, it would be better for me if I, used another piece of wood, like a clapper, to where is it now? If I used another piece of wood just to come and press this, it would just keep it more stable there. But I'm not going to do that because I live on the edge. And what I'm going to do is just continue going along. Now, the one challenge you will find is that this ink can be quite sensitive to the heat. So, now I'm doing all of this ironing, but I am also heating the wood a little bit. So, I don't know if you'll really see it on the camera, but if I were to now, okay, I've now gotten to this side of the wood, I want to carry on, but if I take this and put it on the wood, all these marks will suddenly disappear because it's very sensitive to heat. So I'm going to flip it around, carry on this side, and then just keep flipping it like that, so that each time I give the wood a little bit of time to cool, so that I don't erase my marks as soon as I put them on the wood. And I'm also doing it on the wood, one, because it gives me a nice sharp edge, but also because it allows me then to flip it like this. If I did it directly on the ironing board, I wouldn't be able to do that. And the ironing board also holds the heat a lot more than the wood, so it would be difficult for me to keep those marks from disappearing every time I move it over a hot area. So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and do that all the way around. And then, the next step, I will do the exact same thing. I'll just be measuring from there, 2 centimeters, and put a mark there. You can theoretically just, kind of feel that and flip it over. So I'll be doing a combination. I'll have my mark there, I'll be feeling it there and making sure that I get a nice, neat, straight edge. And then we'll pop to the sewing machine once it's all done. So nothing too exciting. I'm just coming up to the end of this whole saga. Here by the seams, making sure I iron it nice and flat. So when I get to the iron, I don't have to struggle. You know, just folding up onto the marks, and then also kind of feeling with my fingers for that turn up, because it is 1 centimeter, 1 centimeter. Bring us to 2. But yeah, there's basically nothing to it. Just instead of now, you know, taking this and measuring, and trying to hold that measure and iron at the same time, a little bit tricky. So I like this method because it just makes it a little bit easier. Measure one time all the way around, put your marks, then come iron all the way around one time with just the one little trick of the wooden board so that you can flip it over and not lose your marks with the heat every time. So let's see. Here we are at the end. And as you know, I am a pinner. So I'm going to pin not everywhere. You know, something like this really doesn't, it's not going to go anywhere. But the pins are going to help me stabilize where the, I'm going to say like the straight portion of the turn up is. Okay, so yeah, the pins obviously, you know, I'm going to pin all of the joins. So the ends here, just so that I can kind of in a way train the fabric to be straight. So it doesn't create that wavy pattern. So you can hear, making sure my seam is going to match. And depending on how wide this ball is, how much energy I have that day, I can, you know, decide maybe between each seam is going to be 2 pins, 4 pins, 1 pin. And today, I think it's going to be a 1 pin day. So I'm just marking up or pinning up all of the seams. And then I will just kind of measure with my eye halfway between. Just make sure that this folds as straight up as possible. So it will give me a good guide when I sew where, or yeah, to make sure that I don't create a roll. Alright, so just going to pin this and then hit the iron, hit the sewing machine. So let's look at this one. So this, like such a flimsy material, I'm always going to stitch with the hem upwards. I'll never stitch, you know, on this side, just because the machine.
So you do a double fold.
This is a double fold. In this case, I'm doing it like this. For a shear, I won't put an overlock, because then you're going to see the overlock from the right side.
Is that your backward?
Yeah, this is the reverse. So there's nothing too interesting here. What I want to look at is that always my edge is going to be here. I usually do like on the nose of the 4 for 1 centimeter, on the back of this one, of the 1/4, because this is now an imperial, even though I use the metric. And just going along, nothing too exciting. But because the machine is always, like the foot is always pushing, they can very easily create a wavy pattern. So I've got a pin here. You see, as I approach the pin, you can see there's a bubble forming there. And if I just let that bubble continue, you won't see it yet, but if I let the bubble continue, it will form this like diagonal.
Like the pleats, like
yeah,
that, yes.
So to prevent that, I can just use a pin to kind of shift that bulk. Little bit as you go. So that's why I always keep those pins there to show me where the bulk is occurring. And then just as I'm stitching, I'll just shift that bulk in a little bit. But that's basically that, nothing too exciting. Now this one, because it's so soft, you can actually pull it and that will get rid of your bulk.
Too much either.
It's a bit of a gamble. You see, even though I pulled it, it is still creating this bulk. So I'd rather just push that bulk in as I go.
Sure, your stitch right on the edge. Wow.
Yeah, with this machine also the pressure is quite lacquer. So with a domestic machine, it's easier to slide, whereas this one
holds it
quite lacquer. You can always increase the pressure here if you want, or decrease, whatever you want.
That's nice.
Oh, these machines are fabulous. But that's basically that. Nothing too exciting. And of course, the very last thing, I'll check myself for loose threads, and just give it a last iron. So that's also what I'll do during my last iron. My last iron is usually the last check that I do. I do that one time. I iron everything last time, and I use that time to check, especially everywhere where I know I've sewn. Obviously, I must go and check there to see that I didn't leave a thread. And this time I'm not ironing it on the wood because I've got now, quite a few folds here, and I want this actually to be able to like sink into the board. Yeah, so I wouldn't do it on the wood. I think I'm just going to, after this, give this a bit of a steam. It's a bit of a wrinkly dress. But that's that, nothing too exciting. Doing a hem on a chiffon.
Then they come and fit it again.
This one, no.